That was about 3-4 years ago. I was promoting one of the Tekken movies.
Right.
That Steven Seagal. This journalist suddenly said, "Hey, what do you think of Steven Seagal saying you don't know how to punch?"
A couple of years ago, while promoting one of the Tekken films, a reporter turned to me during an interview and asked out of the blue, "What do you think about Steven Seagal making the comment, 'You don't know how to punch'?" The question captured what many people already knew in Hollywood. Steven Seagal, a former action hero, martial arts master, and 90s hero with films like Under Siege and The Glimmer Man, has a reputation that's far from heroic. Off camera, he's developed a reputation for odd antics, nightmares on the set, stunning allegations, and mythical feuds, solidifying his place among Tinseltown's most unpopular people. In this video, we'll dig into the stories and secrets behind the celebrities who can't stand Steven Seagal, the shocking reasons they avoid him, the infamous incidents that caused outrage, and the jaw-dropping tale of what happened when he crossed a legendary stunt coordinator. Keep watching to find out more. John Leguizamo. For actor John Leguizamo, a bad run-in with Seagal turned into more than just a memory. It became part of his Broadway show Ghetto Clown in 2011. In an interview with the AV Club, Leguizamo recalled his first day of rehearsals for the 1996 thriller Executive Decision. Seagal walked in and loudly declared, "I'm in command. What I say is law." Leguizamo laughed at the absurdity, wondering who would actually say such a thing. The laughter was short-lived. Seagal, Leguizamo recalls, then slammed him against a brick wall with an Aikido elbow, which took the wind out of his lungs. Gasping on the floor, all he could manage to stutter was, "Why? Why?" Years later, Leguizamo recreated the scene on stage, parodying Seagal's stiffened movements and notoriously ungainly running style. The New York Daily News once labeled Seagal's campaign as feminine, and Seagal seemingly did not enjoy being satirized. The Observer reports that Seagal threatened to punch Leguizamo if he ever encountered him on a red carpet. Leguizamo joked about it, saying, "I don't think he's invited to a lot of red carpets." Considering Seagal's evolution, he queried, "How does a blue-collar dude who began as a martial arts instructor turn into such a putz? How'd you become such an egomaniacal diva?" Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron can appear to be a supermodel, but she's shown that she's one of Hollywood's strongest action stars. A winner of an Oscar for her unsettling performance in Monster 2003, she's also starred in action-driven blockbusters such as Atomic Blonde, The Old Guard, and Mad Max. Fury Road, which is widely considered to be one of the greatest action movies of all time. In a 2020 appearance on Howard Stern's show, Theron wasn't afraid to speak her mind regarding Seagal. Commenting on viral videos of him shoving opponents awkwardly, she said, "He's just hugely obese and shoving people. He can hardly fight. It's absurd." She also spoke to the serious charge of sexual assault and abuse against Seagal, leveled by Portia de Rossi, Jenny McCarthy, and reporter Lisa Guerrero. Theron was frank. "I have no problem speaking about him because he's not very nice to women." The SNL cast. Seagal's 1991 hosting stint on Saturday Night Live is legendary. Not for humor, but for being one of the worst hosting jobs in the show's history. Tim Meadows remembered in Live from New York that Seagal was always complaining about jokes that he didn't get, largely because, according to Meadows, he just wasn't funny. Julia Sweeney likened his performance as so bad it was irrefutable, remembering that he once trapped himself in his dressing room, angry over a sketch in which bodybuilding duo Hans and Franz made a joke about beating him up. She referred to it as really legendary craziness. David Spade afterward stated Seagal was difficult to work with because he just wouldn't play. Even SNL chief Lorne Michaels got in on the joke. In a 1992 sketch, when Nicolas Cage feared people would perceive him as the biggest jerk to have ever hosted, Michaels replied, No, that would be Steven Seagal." Juliana Margulies. ER actress Juliana Margulies had a profoundly disturbing experience with Seagal in the early days of her career. She had read for a part in his 1991 film Out for Justice and consented to seeing him in a hotel room. When she sat down on the couch, she felt something hard under the cushion, Seagal's gun. He took it out nonchalantly, saying, "Oh, sorry, I must have left my gun there." Then he placed it on the nightstand and inexplicably volunteered to read her palm, saying he was a healer. With a gun nearby, Margulies hastily excused herself and ran out. Years later, she reported that meeting protected her from subsequent peril. When Harvey Weinstein asked her to a hotel meeting, she declined, recalling her frightening encounter with Seagal. Jenny McCarthy, too, had a disturbing experience with Seagal. On her auditioning for Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, she reported Seagal ruining the audition by asking her to remove her dress. I said, "What?" And he said, "There's nudity." I said, "No, there's not, or I wouldn't be here right now." McCarthy said she burst into tears before saying, "Rent my Playboy video, you asshole," and leaving. When she arrived at her automobile, Seagal caught her and threatened, "Don't you ever tell anybody." Years afterward, she continues to call him out, stating, "If I saw him today, I would still say, you're a F asterisk 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 ing asshole, and I really hope you change your ways." Portia de Rossi. Prior to her success on Ally McBeal and Arrested Development, Portia de Rossi experienced her own harrowing encounter with Seagal. In 2017, she tweeted that while at a final audition for one of his movies, Seagal unzipped his leather pants and informed her it was key to have chemistry off camera. She left the room right away. When she informed her agent, the response was, "Well, I didn't know he was your type." De Rossi went on to be a leading voice in the hashtag #MeToo movement, with wife Ellen DeGeneres publicly commending her for her courage. Randy Couture. MMA legend Randy Couture, who is also an experienced stunt performer, once quipped during a 2012 interview that he'd returned from retirement just to fight Seagal. Seagal responded by saying Couture could challenge him someplace where there are no witnesses. Couture dismissed it as a joke, but defended his characterization of Seagal's reputation among stuntmen, explaining, "Everybody knows the rumors about stuntmen getting hurt. I began in stunts. To all the stuntmen out there, I'm going to stick with my guns and say Seagal would be that guy." Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's dislike for Seagal is personal. Her uncle, legendary stuntman Gene LaBelle, once choked Seagal out on a film set, allegedly to the point of an embarrassing accident. Rousey told MMA Interviews TV Gene LaBelle would destroy Steven Seagal again. "Even as old as they are now, I'd still put my money on him." She then added a pointed warning. "I don't want to provide another quote such as, 'I'd beat the crap out of Steven Seagal, but I think I could. Hell, yeah. If he spoke ill of Gene to my face, I would have to make him crap his pants a second time.'" Brian Cox. Veteran character actor Brian Cox, whose resume includes Manhunter as well as his Emmy-winning turn as Logan Roy on HBO Succession, has worked with hundreds of big stars in the business. But when it comes to Steven Seagal, Cox's sentiments couldn't be more plain. He has little tolerance for Seagal's attitude and ego. In his 2021 memoir, Putting the Rabbit in the Hat, Cox remembered working with Seagal on the 1996 action film The Glimmer Man, reflecting on his co-star, "Cox was not kind. Steven Seagal is as ridiculous off-screen as he appears on it," Cox wrote, making it clear that he could not stand Seagal as an actor and a human being. Cox added, "He exudes an air of studied calm, as if he's on a higher plane than the rest of us. And although he might think so, he's certainly alone in his opinion." It was a withering observation from an old pro who has worked with some of the best of them. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jean-Claude Van Damme, action hero by trade and alias the Muscles from Brussels by reputation, never had much of a good thing to say about Steven Seagal. Despite both men breaking into national consciousness as action stars during the late 80s and early 90s, their feud was more about personal dislike than it was about box office. Reports of the two falling out of favor started emerging in the early 90s, particularly when Seagal began making derogatory comments about Van Damme's fighting skills. From different accounts, Seagal would regularly belittle Van Damme's martial arts background, saying that he could easily defeat him in a real fight. The feud came to its culmination in a party organized by none other than Sylvester Stallone in Miami during the mid-1990s. Stallone would later relate that Van Damme approached Seagal after hearing the trash talk. The challenge was straightforward, a fight there and then. Seagal reportedly walked away from the party, though, after being challenged. Not content, Van Damme accosted him outside, challenging him to back up his words. Again, Seagal was not interested. Stallone later described it as dead serious and ready to throw down Van Damme, and Seagal obviously didn't want any part of it. The confrontation has become one of Hollywood's most well-known near-fights. DMX, rapper and actor DMX, whose deep voice and imposing physique made him a convincing tough guy, starred alongside Steven Seagal in the 2001 action film Exit Wounds. But although the movie got some box office traction, the partnership between the two men was not easy. DMX criticized Seagal's actions on set publicly, calling him hard to work with and arrogant. DMX, during interviews, implied that Seagal's ego would get in the way of filming and treated those on set unwell. Their conflicts weren't merely professional in nature, it was also personal. DMX alleged that Seagal attempted to assert dominance and control on and off the set, which the rapper had no intention of accepting. There was little respect between the two men off the set, even though they shared on-screen chemistry. The tension between the two became one more chapter in Hollywood's long catalog of stars who left Steven Seagal with bad memories and angry words. John Leguizamo. Actor-comedian John Leguizamo, who has proved to be versatile in movies such as Carlito's Way, Romeo and Juliet, and Moulin Rouge, had one of the most notorious confrontations with Steven Seagal that occurred on the set of the 1996 action thriller Executive Decision. Leguizamo remembered in various interviews that prior to shooting the movie, Seagal brought the cast and crew together to make a speech. As recounted by Leguizamo, Seagal flamboyantly declared, "I'm in command. What I say is law." The statement came out of the blue and sounded ridiculous to Leguizamo. He couldn't help but laugh. That did not sit well with Seagal. Leguizamo told how Seagal retaliated by physically attacking him, bricking him into a wall and knocking the air out of him. The experience was stunning and embarrassing, and it left Leguizamo with no respect for his co-star. Subsequently, Leguizamo ridiculed Seagal in his stand-up routines, recounting the incident with acerbic humor. The incident became one of the most well-known tales of Seagal's infamous on-set antics, further solidifying Leguizamo as one of Seagal's toughest critics. George Foreman. Heavyweight boxing champion George Foreman is a man few would dare to upset, famous for his crushing punching ability, and subsequently for his charm outside the arena. Foreman previously had a strange public falling out with Steven Seagal. In 2017, Foreman turned to Twitter to publicly challenge Seagal, inviting him to settle their score in a no-holds-barred bout. Foreman's tweet stated, "Steven Seagal, I challenge you. One-on-one, I use boxing, you can use whatever. 10 rounds in Vegas." The challenge appeared unexpectedly, but it was connected to Seagal's inflammatory political remarks and his image as a defender of making outrageous, unsubstantiated assertions about how formidable a fighter he was. Undefined Seagal never issued the challenge, and the fight never